That was it, though. That was the last bit of energy that I had, was singing that song. So now we're in the episode. I'm just gonna be like, "Hi, everybody." Oh, well, hello, everybody. As my 3-year-old nephew likes to say every time he enters any room, hello, everybody. It is good to be back on Ye Old Podcast. You'll Never Talk Alone. I'm your friend, Joseph Craven. We've got Alex Lebel. Alex, what's up?
Nothing.
Wow. We've got Zach Osborne. Zach, what's up?
Not a lot to report over here.
Impressive. And we've got Will Caves. Will, what's up?
This is the most human interaction I've had in a month.
Aren't you married? Where's your wife, man? I'm worried
Exactly.
about you now. Oh, well, we are back. We've taken a little bit of time off, partly because, just been celebrating winning the Premier League title. Also because this is normally the time of year in which we don't have podcasts to record anyway. So I think we're
this will be our season preview podcast. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's what will be happening right now.
So it's a little, we're a little disorganized. So we just, we taking some time off and we're jumping back in it now. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And we're excited to be back in your ear holes. Okay, so normally during the summer and on the end of the previous season, neither of which is really happening right now because I think we're technically already in the 2020-2021 season. I don't even know. I can't keep up with it. It feels like we're already in there. But this is typically when we'd be doing a keep or sell episode. We trademarked that if you hear any podcasts, any articles written on any sports journalism sites, they're ripping us off. That's just how it goes. It's just how it is. So we're going to do that episode here right now, and we're going to try to simplify it a little bit because being league champions, maybe we don't want to shake things up too much, but I want to start things off with a little bit of a risque question. Okay, maybe that's
Ooh.
not. Maybe that's...
Ooh.
Subscribe to our OnlyFans if you want to see the video chat of this risque question.
Who in the starting 11 would you make out with? No. All right, so the question I want to go with is I want you to give me someone in the starting 11 that if you had to lose one member of them, of the starting 11, you had to sell, not saying we want to, but saying you had to, who would you get rid of in the team? All right? That is the question right now. Purely hypothetical. The world's worst hypothetical question. If you are the defending Premier League champions and for some reason you just have to get rid of one of your starters, who is it going to be? I think it's the world's worst. Alex, I nominate you to start things off because you always go first.
That's true. And I'm going to go ahead and take the answer that we're probably all thinking. As much as I love him, as much as I purchased his kit before he was able to wear it, I think it's got to be Gini Wijnaldum. I think he does so much for the team, and he is awesome, and he's such an integral part of the squad as well. And he rides a bike like no one else. Being Dutch, he knows how to ride a bike or two. But I think we've seen that we've got players in the squad that can fill in that role and maybe adapt to what he does or bring more to the table. So if there was anyone, and I'm not saying I want to get rid of anyone in this starting 11, but if there was someone that I think could be upgraded, it would be his position. So Gini, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop your smile for that millisecond where you're not smiling. Please forgive me.
All right, so you're starting it off. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know right now that Genie is not my choice.
Ooh.
Okay? All right.
It's not my choice either.
Oh.
Mm.
It's probably Will's choice, though. Hey, Will, who are you getting rid of?
Well, I'm going to be difficult. Which starting 11 are we talking about?
Carling Cup. Carabao Cup.
Sorry, Divock. No, I think mine's Genie too. I started to be cheeky and say Nabby, but I didn't want Alex to explode. Yeah, for all the same reasons. It just sadly, this is just a terrible question, and I hate the moderator for asking it.
Yeah.
I hoped that you would feel that way about me. All I really wanted was to try to alienate all of you tonight as we record. That was my number one goal, and I feel like I'm already.
What do you
almost
mean
there.
tonight?
Please, Zach. We played YMCA baseball together, Zach. You can't
That's
get
true.
away from me.
That's true.
Will, you want to add anything else before we pass over to Zach, or was that?
That's pretty much it. I mean,
Okay.
it's there. Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off, but at the same time, I kind of wanted to cut you off. Zach,
Please.
then you say that you have someone different in mind. Who do you have?
Yeah, so I think I have to, acknowledge sort of a caveat with my answer here because I'm thinking of this like in a vacuum. I'm not thinking about the potential problem it might create in the team for this player to be gone. I'm just like simply basing it on this player's ability compared to the other 10 guys in the starting 11, if that makes any sense. Like if his departure would obviously create a hole in the team, that would be a problem. But I'm going to have to say, looking at it in a vacuum, Joe Gomez is
Ooh.
and, all of our starting 11 are fantastic, Joe Gomez included. But if I'm ranking them all based on their performances, their potential for further growth, I'd probably kick Joe Gomez to the curb.
I could totally understand that. I'm a big Joe Gomez fan, big Joe Gomez proponent. Hold on, I just had music start playing randomly in my earbuds when I touched it. Apparently, my phone decided that was its signal to try to connect or something like that. So I have to try to mute that as I go in. It was interesting. Anyway, I totally understand where you're coming from with the Joe Gomez. Not my choice, but not one that I would necessarily, disagree hard with because I like Gomez. We know that Matip is capable most of the time, so like we would have coverage there. But I feel like that maybe we could talk a little bit more about that in a bit because that's not actually my choice. I'm going to go with a Joseph Craven Big Bold opinion here. Just to be different and difficult, I'm going to say if I had to, I would, believe it or not, ditch Andy Robertson. All right? Meaning, mostly because if I had to get rid of somebody, he is somebody whose value right now is like sky high. And somebody will overpay to take him right now as he is at the peak of his abilities. Now, would that selling Andy Robertson make any sense? No, absolutely not. and we should never, ever do it. But if I had to get rid of somebody, that's one I would look at and say, okay, well, we've got some young fullbacks that we seem to really like. We did just make the move for our new signing, Kostas Tsimikas, I guess. We'll figure that pronunciation out. But, we might be able to go with that. If we were to move someone like Andy. But again, it's a really dumb idea. But that is going to be maybe not my big, bold opinion, but my really dumb idea. Do I have a logo for that?
We'll make one.
Make one. Thank you. So there you go. That's what I would go with. I was really expected to get like even more of an angry reaction out of Will for that, but he was kind of stone-faced.
No, I'm just so happy that no one said Hendo.
Oh,
I assumed that someone would say Hendo. Andrew
We
would
would-
have said
That's
Hendo.
why we didn't invite Andrew.
It's the Hendo Shuffle. We can't give
can't
up the Hendo
Right.
Shuffle.
Contractually speaking, yeah. I mean, like we can't. No, I would only do that if I were purposefully trying to spite you or something, Will, and that's coming later on. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, love Hendo too much. Andy's one of those guys that like I love Andy, but at the same time I also don't necessarily respect Andy, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Like I never want him to go anywhere, but also like I watch him play sometimes and I'm like, wow, he's just kind of being a dick. Oh well, you know.
So that's why I love him. It's the
Yeah.
Drogba effect. It's the same
Yeah.
reason I love Drogba.
Yeah.
You can rewind the tape back several years for this podcast and hear us say we've needed a bastard in this team
Yeah.
for years. And
Since
Andy
Toronto
Robertson,
left.
yeah,
Yep.
and he's absolutely that bastard.
Exactly. Which is one of the reasons why like it would make no sense to move him. But at the same time, like if you had to, he's the one person in the team that I think right now someone will like grossly overpay for because of how he's performing.
I
Or
think you
maybe
could
not-
make that argument for Trent.
Or Gomez. I think people would pay out the butt for Gomez too.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I think the only thing holding back for Gomez, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm a jerk. But Gomez has had so many injuries that I feel like that would keep his price a little bit down.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think some people might be hesitant to make a bid for someone like Trent, knowing that they would have to grossly overpay for us to even consider it because he is like, you know, Liverpool born and bred, and you know. all
What would
that.
you even like what would even make you think twice about selling Trent? Like what amount of money would it take?
All of it.
All
Right.
the money. All the
Yeah.
money.
Mm.
Because I don't think I have a number. I think he's
Right.
priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't ever consider it, but like, what was the fee that we paid for like Van Dyke?
75.
75, I think.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it would have to be like at least 100 to consider, just if not just because of Trent's age, right?
Mhm.
And knowing that he's only going to get better from where he is right now, and he's already just ridiculous. It would have to be. At
I mean,
least.
his free kicks alone are worth $100 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Per
can
letter.
anyone know what that comment was a sly reference to? The price we paid for Charlie Adam.
Oh.
Because as we were pursuing him, Sir Alex Ferguson made the comment that I think he said his free kicks or his corners are worth $10 million alone. And we ended up grossly overpaying for Charlie Adam based on a dumb offhand comment that Sir Alex gave after a match against Blackpool.
Wow.
That's a deep cut for you.
That's
is.
a deep cut.
I
That's
do
good.
remember that.
That's really good.
But
So
you know,
Cut-
there's a lot of teams though that need a good midfielder, and Trent would fill that role because he's wasted at right back. So
Wasted.
it's wasted.
If you ask me how much it would have to be a totally irrational amount of money. So we're talking Harry Maguire territory.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Messi plus cash. Like that's the amount. It's that kind of money.
I've had to come to terms with the fact that I can never run for office because I am on a recording saying that Trent isn't good enough to be in our starting 11. That happened once.
Yeah.
I called for him to be benched.
Yeah.
So my aspirations are done.
There's somebody who was like, saving that clip. You're gonna ruin that man's life down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah, for sure.
How's that got canceled?
Who thought it was pretty wild that it was that finally did it. Out of all my transgressions.
Out of everything. Oh, well, there we go. I thought that would be a good little opening question. It wasn't. So let's move on to the position groups. And we'll start way at the back like we like to do. Start with them keepers. And let's jump into, of course, this list consisting of Allison Becker, Adrian, Quavim Keller. You like that? And then, technically speaking, apparently a couple other people. Anyway, so keepers, one of those groups that, like, obviously, like, top heavy. We know who, like, the instant, like, never let this guy go, player there is in Allison. But what about the rest of what we've got? Do you think, and we'll start with you, Alex, on this one again, but do you think it'd be beneficial to sell any of the other goalkeepers we have for any particular reason.
I think it'd be beneficial to somehow get Karius off the books if we can do that. He's in training. He's with the team right now, going through some reps. Looks like he's having a fun time, which is good to see because he's been through some hard times. But I think it's just better for everyone involved if he just has a fresh start somewhere. Maybe go back to Germany. I think that would probably be the best fit for him. It was back where he was at his best. So yeah, if we're going to sell anybody, it's probably just him, potentially a loan for Quiveen Keller, who I think they call him Queeve in training. That's what I thought I heard. It might've been another word that I don't want to say for risk of getting the explicit tag on this episode.
Sounds dirty.
But yeah, maybe a loan for him, but he seems pretty content with where he is right now in terms of development and just being around the squad. So, if we had to sell anyone, definitely Karius. We had to loan somebody, definitely Queeve. Because we've got that Polish kid that we just signed who I think is also in training. Or no, it's Dan Atherton, I think, is in training, who seems to be the next up-and-comer from our academy. So, yeah, I think we're in good shape. We've got Lonergan around being everybody's dad. So I think we're set up for a good time.
Good time Lonergan. That's what we've always called him, yeah.
He's got a PBR in hand in every training session.
Gut
just kind of
he does have the absolute best job in the world. Like, it's him. I mean, you win dozens of titles. You don't do anything but drink PBR. It's great.
Oh man, he really does. Will, would you make any changes to that goalkeeper list that Alex already mentioned?
Yeah, I think if you have to get rid of one of them, Adrian is the one I'd get rid of and let Karius be number 2. I think if you actually look back to before the bad time, he was really good. Like, he had the most clean sheets in the Champions League that year going into the final. He had really found his feet, after Christmas that season. He's had some bad times for sure, but he's also not our number 1. So, yeah, Allison did get hurt for a long time this year, but that's probably not going to happen very often on a goal kick the first game of the season. So I'd keep him. I think I think Zach's going to kill me, but I think he deserves a second chance maybe.
Oh, it's the weirdest thing. Zach just left the room. Oh my God, Will, he's right behind you, Will!
Why do you guys think that I hate Karius so much?
Because when we were at the old Capitol Inn, you screamed, "Get the F out of my club," loud enough to be heard on the coast, and went to the bathroom. That's why.
I can't be held accountable for my actions that day.
You called someone on a payphone and said, "Give me this guy's address."
You did.
Hired a private eye to try to take him out.
I mean, y'all are the ones that said, yes, we'd like another pitcher. Keep them coming.
Mm-hmm.
So you're implicated. You're complicit in this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with Alex on this one, though. Predictably, I'd probably sell Karius and stick with Adrian as the number 2. Honestly, just because, Adrian sort of proved himself last season as a more than capable, substitute when Allison was injured. Of course, conceivably, Karius would be fine in that role as well, but he spent more time away from the club recently rather than with the club and being a part of this team as they've grown together and started winning trophies. So for that reason alone, I would say stick with Adrian and sell Karius. And that's probably the only major opinion I would have as far as the goalkeepers are concerned.
And I'm going to split it down the middle again, and I'm going to side more with Will. Ultimately, which one of those two? Because Adrian or Karius should be the number 2, and that's kind of it. Really, which one of those two we should move and which one we should hold on to primarily comes down, I think, to what sort of offers we feel like we could actually get for either of them. And right now, you might be able to get a decent deal for Adrian because he is, a reliable veteran. He's been around the league for a little while. He even played a decent amount of the league this past year, and people were able to see him firsthand. And I think that maybe that opportunity might give Karius a chance to, be a little bit more visible in England for a little bit. And one of those smaller English clubs, maybe when we feel comfortable making a bid on him to bring him in. I wouldn't keep up. I didn't pretend to try to keep up with him while he was on loan, so I don't know what type, performances he was putting in. But it still is, he's young enough to have more like potential to grow. His value can go up if we hold on to him and give him an opportunity to maybe show off a little bit to a couple of clubs and then maybe move him. So I feel like there's just more potential still with like what sort of value he can be sold for later. So I guess that's really it. Maybe that's too cold-blooded, but so I would side more with Will on this one. So we're split down the middle so far. As far as the youngsters that go, though, I don't know what all you do. I do like what Alex, what you point out with Keller. It seems to kind of be comfortable being like the number 3 and like training with the first team and kind of learning and all of that. So, if he's comfortable with that, I don't know how old he is now. But what, he's probably, he's still early 20s, right?
I don't think he's that old. He's also a colossus.
Yeah, he is. I'm trying to find his birth date and everything.
He's 21.
21. So it's just, I like, we don't often get massive keepers, I feel like. That's kind of fun. But anyway, that's my take on that. Gentlemen, let's move forward a little bit to the defenders. We had some good talk about some of the defenders, Gomez, Matip, the weird hypothetical of how much we would actually consider selling Trent for, which is a great question. We got all that going on. Let's go in reverse order of how we went last time and go down to Zach. I know. And start with Zach on this one. Let's talk about the defenders. Let's go ahead and group all the defenders together, fullbacks and center backs, and talk about everyone ranging from like the untouchable Virgil van Dijk to the guys that just got new deals and Nico Williams. Let's talk about it all. Zach, is there anyone in this defender group that you feel like, go ahead and move them?
I feel like I'm going to have to look up the squad to remember exactly who we're talking about.
That's why I've got it. That's why I've got it on another monitor right over here. I couldn't tell you that, like Nat Phillips. I always forget Nat Phillips, even though we even had that brief moment where we brought him back just in case and then sent him back. I always forget Nat Phillips, Vandenberg, the other young center back that we brought in last year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I don't know that I just like know any of these younger guys well enough to have any strong opinions either way. I think it would probably just come down to whether, Nathaniel Phillips or Sepp Vandenberg or Kihana Hover or however you say his name, if those guys are unhappy with their development at Liverpool or if loan deals would make more sense than for them to stay and, continue to train or whatever and be a part of the team. To be honest, I don't really know enough about them or how important they are as far as providing cover to really have super strong opinions either way. I think obviously, is it Nico or Neco Williams?
I think it's Nico.
I like to think it's Neco because of that terrible candy Neco wafers.
Yeah, they're bad.
But
it's not going to stop me from eating an entire sleeve of them.
Right.
But I'm going to complain the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit like when Nico is out there. Maybe that was a stretch, but
it was a good one. It was a good line.
Yeah. I think he's done well enough, to earn a deal and be kept around. I don't know. I really feel like my wealth of knowledge here is not great, and I may have to just get the tag in and let somebody else do the heavy lifting here.
which is totally fair. It's an odd position group because we have such a clear cut like Trent, Andy, Verge, and then Gomez, Matip, depending on who's healthy. Like we have a clear cut 5 there that.
Yeah, and despite what I said with the intro question, I do not want to sell Gomez.
Right.
That does not make sense. And he's been great. He has tons of room still to grow. He's probably objectively England's best center back, as far as the national team is concerned. So yeah, I none of those starters I would endorse selling at this point. That's crazy talk.
Yeah, he's the big man. That's for sure. He is the big man. All right, so yeah, with it being a tricky group here, Will, you got anything you want to toss into the mix, into the conversation?
I don't know. Like, I kind of agree with Nat Phillips. Like, I kind of forget he exists. Sadly, I'm sure he's great, but not good enough. Clearly, with all the youngsters that get to play from this age group, that being Trent, we've seen Hover, we've seen Nico a lot. Like, Klopp obviously doesn't have a problem playing young defenders, so I think he'd be the only one that I'd want to move on. I think we need to add here, honestly. So I don't really think you need to lose anybody. I think this is a good, solid. This is about the only place that I wouldn't make a change, or wouldn't be interested in making a change.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spot that don't necessarily, wouldn't make much sense to. And obviously, we had the new signing in Costas that is, we haven't signed, more depth at center back necessarily, but we got this new signing who's not a, teenager at fullback, which goes to show you that they feel like he can be good cover for what is one of the most valuable positions in the Klopp scheme. So yeah, it just feels like this is a group to add more to. But Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I think you should have called this like midfield B rather than defender, because that's kind of how they play. But I'm a big fan of us currently having, apart from maybe center back, a 1 and 2 at every position. Like we now have Trent and Nico, we now have Andy and Costas, and we now have at least 3 center backs that we can count on being in the first team with Virgil, Joe, and Joel. We definitely need to add there. I know we've been linked with a few people this summer, and I feel like that would be a place where we probably are looking to add. And if we're making sales, we're looking to use those funds to fund a move for someone there. The Nat Phillips thing, I think it's interesting. Don't necessarily, like everyone else has said, want to sell him, but for the most part, it seems like when we use the loan market, we're using that to just postpone and raise the transfer value of people, or get a preseason friendly out of the deal, which appears to be what happened with Stuttgart, because that's what we're doing this weekend. So I think he seems to be, again, another player who's content with how he's involved with the squad or not involved with the squad. I mean, Klopp has spoken highly of him. I'm sure he likes him as a person, but it doesn't seem like at where he's at with his development. And it's crazy to say when he's still relatively so young, but I don't think he's going to make the grade, but it's up to him if he feels content with being a reserve center back, because I think that's as high as it'll get. But I think we could potentially turn him for a profit, because I don't think we spent anything on him. So if we're going to sell anybody, it'd be him. I don't think Vandenberg's ready. I think he's looking a lot more composed and more adult in the inside training videos, but I still think it's a bit too early for him. So expect us to add there, but in terms of outgoings, it's only the fringest of fringe player that we would potentially sell.
Yeah. With Phillips, like, I wonder if he could be one of those guys that's like a Lewis Dunk style, like center back that kind of flies under the radar, and then all of a sudden in his mid-20s, you're like, oh, he's actually pretty good, Mm-hmm. And I wonder if he has that sort of potential, being now like 23, 24, something like that, however old. 22. We just discussed it earlier, didn't we?
That was Kelleher.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Matt Phillips, 48.
Yeah, he's the opposite of the spectrum. How is he even still playing? It's mind-boggling. But being a big fan of potential, I am super curious about what someone like Hoover and Williams and then Vandenberg, who, we brought in when he was 17, and it's I'm really curious to see what sort of thing can happen there, because we've seen obviously that we're good at developing fullbacks at this point. Wonder if we're any good at developing center backs. Maybe Vandenberg's going to be a guy who takes over that Matip position if we decide to move him at some point in the next few years, something like that. I don't know. I'm curious to see them, but I think you're right. At this point, like, this is not a group to ditch anyone on. This is a group to try to bring in one or two more for cover. So
yeah, and I think Klopp spoke sometime last season when Hoover played in the Cup that he sees him as a center back in the future more than a fullback. So I don't know if that means he stays and kind of does what Elliott and Jones and Williams did this season and just kind of always be in training and always be around the team and learn, or if this is a time where we've seen, I just mentioned the loan market previously for transfers, but with Brewster, it definitely seems like there's a future for the first team for him, and we use the loan market. So maybe this is a time where Vandenberg and Hoover go out and get some first team experience somewhere. But it's that debate we had pretty much all the time when we talked about Elliott, Jones, and Williams of, is it better to be around and training with the team and learning, or is it better to be going and be like a starter somewhere? So we'll see.
I'm curious to see also what we do with like the loan market in the next couple of years, and whether we actually start utilizing it as like a minor league training ground more, because as you pointed out, we haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But in recent years, we haven't always used the youth academy much, and we're using that more. And I wonder if we're starting to build that progression of like, okay, come up through the youth academy, train with the first team until we feel like you'd benefit from being in someone else's first team, and then go from there. I wonder if we're going to try to build that strategy like you see a lot of teams do. So, all right, let's move on to a group that I think is going to have a lot more possible controversy in our decisions, or maybe none at all. We'll find out. But let's move to the midfield. All right, the midfielders, the squad that we rotate the most in, unless your name is Jared and Shaqiri, and then you never rotate in.
Never. Who?
Never.
Who?
The Jared who looks, straight hungover in his picture and the new kid and everything. It's just. But anyway, so we got this midfield group. We have the ability to rotate more now. We have the ability to maybe even try to move somebody away, if we feel like we can cover for them and make some moves with that incoming cash. But Alex, I'm going to kick it back over to you now, man. The midfield, anyone in there that you look at and you're like, yeah, let's go ahead and sell them?
We touched on Shaqiri. Obviously, he didn't really play very much this season. I think most of that was down to injury, more so than not really fitting in. But there's also been the discussion of him not really fitting into the way we want to play, despite him having a big impact on the season a year ago when we won the Champions League. It doesn't sound like we're actively shopping him around as much as it seemed at first. And he seems pretty content with staying and fighting for his spot, which I absolutely admire. And watching the training videos that have been coming out of Austria, I think every video that he's involved in, he is just tapping in like a loose ball. Like there has been a scrum, the ball has squirted out, and Xherdan Shaqiri just runs up and scores. So that's surely helping his standing, getting the results in. So I think he is one to potentially hang on to, but if an offer comes in, maybe. I think we'd absolutely consider it. We've also got Curtis Jones coming in, who is filling in the Lallana role of Henderson's best friend, obviously. So I think we've got some depth. But I don't necessarily think I would look to sell anyone, but like Shaqiri, there's the Genie contract stuff going on. I don't want to get rid of him, obviously, but that is going to be an issue not really an issue, but a talking point and a noteworthy item until that contract is signed or a decision is made on that. So I'm that would be something where maybe someone comes in with a shock offer. Maybe Barcelona comes in with a shock offer because they have no clue what they're doing and they're just going to throw money around at people who may or may not be available. But I think we're in a good position here. We've got Ox, we've got Naby, we've got depth, we've got people that we want to see there. The only thing that maybe is a place where we want to strengthen or look for a player of similar profile is that holding mid spot. We've seen what it's like when Hendo gets to move back to where he wants to be, when Fabinho gets to play where he plays and is good at, and we've seen how that transforms the team. And we don't necessarily have a player that does the same thing. That's who we're looking at bringing in. We've seen the Thiago rumors. We'll probably talk about those later. So that could be a sign of evolution of the team yet again. But yeah, I don't think we get rid of anybody actively. I think we just kind of wait and see what happens. And I would like to note that we overlooked in the defensive section Billy Kumedio, who went with the first team. He signed his first deal. He is massive, and from what I've seen, he's pretty skilled with the ball at his feet. So maybe he is the center back we've been looking for, and we don't have to spend $30 million on Ben White.
Sorry, Billy.
Yeah, how foolish of us to forget Billy.
Fake fans. Frauds, all of you. Ball frauds.
You Liverpool fans? Yeah, name 3 of the backup center backs, okay?
Name our starting U9 striker.
Zach, how about you in this midfield discussion? Is there anyone that you look at and you're like, that you just despise and never want to see? No. Is there anyone you feel like we could move away from in this?
Nah, dude. Get ready to have your mind blown. I've unlocked a cheat code. If you go to the Liverpool team page, anyone wearing a jersey that is at least 2 generations old in their official team photo should be sold.
There you go.
So if you apply that logic, we're selling Grujic, Ojo, Woodburn, and Wilson.
Yep.
And that's all I have to say about that.
I love it. It's like the club's already put it out there for us, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. And, I don't necessarily, I'm not going to advocate for any of those players to go. But, I mean, Ojo's jersey is 4 generations
Ojo is like, we didn't have Mane in that jersey, I think. Maybe we did.
So, yeah. Those guys clearly have not been getting enough love from the team, and there's probably a good reason why. It's not that they're without talent. It's that they're not really a part of the current plan, and perhaps it would be better for their careers to be elsewhere. And I know a lot of those guys have spent significant time out on loan, but eventually you've got to feel like we are stringing them along and it's time to cut them loose and let them flourish somewhere else. So I think there is some real world logic to my cheat code.
Yeah, for sure. With Ojo, I'm honestly shocked that he's still technically on the team. I really felt like he had made a permanent move to Rangers a while back, but apparently he's still around. So
yeah.
Will, what you got in the midfield?
I think, assuming that Genie signs his contract, which I don't really know what's happening with that. Obviously he's probably holding out for more money, sadly, but sadly, you can get your money, dude. But aside from that situation, there's not really a reason to move on anybody. For whatever reason, I just don't see Shaqiri leaving. I don't know. He just seems like he's going to stick around. I haven't thought about Ben Woodburn since we wore that jersey, so I think it'd be fine to loan him out. Ojo's the same. I know y'all love Grujic. I would like to see him play some, but I just don't know where he gets in. I like Harry Wilson a lot. I'd like to keep him, but with Elliott here, I think Elliott's probably better and has a higher ceiling, and they're probably very similar players. So I think I'm probably with Zach. Anybody that's in the off jersey, get rid of them or loan them. I don't know. That's probably where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard to disagree with all of that. I mean, as much as I did always enjoy Oluwaseyi Babajide Ojo as a man, as a up and coming player who, you know, played a decent amount a few years ago in like FA Cup matches and everything. Yeah, I'm honestly shocked that he hasn't permanently moved like to a team like Rangers, which I believe is where he's been on loan for like 5 years. It feels like, you know, I feel like that there, when you look at just the roles that each of these players play, you know, that I don't know what Shaqiri necessarily brings that can't be replicated with one of the younger players. Like if we keep, you know, if we play a Harvey Elliott more, if we keep someone like Woodburn and use him more, you know, Cujo, all that. I don't know what Shaqiri would bring that one of those players couldn't match. So I feel like if an offer comes along, move him along. You know, Harry Wilson, I feel like is I'm a big fan of his, but I also feel like he's done enough at a place like Bournemouth where like somebody that level of a team would want to spend the money to get him permanently. And
like Newcastle or so, I could see him.
Yeah.
Somebody like a mid-table team for a long
exactly
time.
like a mid-table team would totally bring him in as their, because the role he would play is exactly what Ox plays for us, you know. And so that's where I'm like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need both of those guys. Ox is healthy again, and when Ox is healthy again, oh man, he is a dynamo when he steps in, and it's so much fun. So like, why not just ride the Ox while he's healthy and maybe give Harry a chance to move somewhere else? And it's the same thing with Grujic. I'm a huge Grujic fan, and part of that being because of my deep love of Hertha Berlin that started up in, when was that? May that the Bundesliga started back. That's when my love of Hertha Berlin started. But someone in the Bundesliga would 100% pay good money to get Grujic in because he excellent for Hertha Berlin. So like those are guys that I'm like, I don't want to necessarily like actively shop them because they could be valuable as backups. Guys like Woodburn who, you know, still have a lot of potential, still only like 20 years old. But maybe somebody in a mid-table team would like to go ahead and capitalize on that potential, you know, in some sort of move. Those are guys that I feel like if we're not going to give them a chance, if we hang on to Shaqiri instead of playing, you know, Woodburn or Harry Wilson more or something like that, then yeah, we might as well just go ahead and move them along.
I mean, we said the same kind of thing about, you know, Jordan Ibe, and everything's been great for him since then.
Right. Better than Sterling.
Jordan Ibe is a name that, like, I just honestly forget that he was ever here. Like, because he just has disappeared. Oh, man. It's not like one of those, you know, watching, and it's like, oh, there's Dominique Golanke who's scoring. Hey, that's a funny little, like, he was with Liverpool, and then, like, you see that Jordan Ibe still exists, and you're like, oh, my gosh, that's right.
And all of these players play for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
We wonder why they went down.
Every single one of them. So if Bournemouth wants to take any more guys, I guess, you know, they can have them. So that's what I would say. I say, like, go ahead, move Shaqiri, Wilson, Woodburn, Ojo, Grujic, like, move all of them if we feel like we're not going to use them and we're not going to rotate the midfield that much. I would like them because I like to rotate in more. But if we honestly don't rotate quite as much in the midfield like that. So, you know. All right. The forwards to wrap things up here. All right, boys. Are you ready for this? Because this is where we get to finally talk about Divock Origi and his hair. Because we haven't really had a chance to talk too much about Divock Origi's Cisco thong song hair, but since he got that look, so let's go ahead and talk about the forwards. Going back around, and I think I accidentally messed up the order in the last time, going Alex, Zach, Will, when it was supposed to go Alex, Will, Zach if I was going alphabetically. So I just don't even know. I don't even know who to go with anymore. Let's go with I don't know. Let's do Will first, Alex second, Zach after that. Let's do that. That's really just no order to it at all.
I would keep all of them. Honestly, I like the only one that's even Taiwo Awanini is on here still. I don't know if that's a typo, but I kind of forgot he exists too. He's in a jersey from like 2015. But the Default could be the only one, but you'd have to bring somebody else in. And so like, unless that is happening, I would say that we keep him because I mean, he's good enough to be a backup and he has come good in big games. I don't see a need to sell him. So I don't know that I would change anybody of this group.
Taiwo is built like a taller Shaqiri.
Yes.
So maybe we move him to midfield and move Shaqiri out. I'm just saying. All right, Alex, you're in the middle in this discussion here. Anyone in the forwards that you feel like we should move along?
Yeah, this is where I was going to talk about Harry Wilson, just because I think he would be, if he was going to play for us at all, he'd be a right winger.
Agreed.
So I think we capitalize. He and Grujic are just kind of very similar in my mind in the sense that the loan market was used to raise their transfer value. And like Zach said earlier, they just kind of missed out on the team growing as an absolute unit. And so I think that we have passed them by in a sense, even if they are good on their own, even if they've done good things on loan. I think that has only benefited us in the sense that we'll get more money for them when we get rid of them. And that's probably what we need to do. I don't think they really have any future with the first team for us. So sell Wilson, and then in that group, Grujic. And then, Shaqiri is potentially a winger. He sometimes plays out there. But we don't – it's interesting with our forward line. We have a very defined – their roles are very defined for the starting three. And then for the people behind them, which sometimes Ox, but then now it's just Origi and Minamino. We kind of play them everywhere, and that – does and doesn't work sometimes. Like when it works, it's awesome and it confuses defenders. And when it doesn't work, we look like crap. So it's really interesting to see what we're viewing is that. I mean, we have Elliott. I think I've talked before about how important it is to have a right wing that is a backup to Mo Salah that is also left-footed, just because that kind of natural movement complements what Trent wants to do so well. So maybe he is the backup winger. But is he ready? I mean, he hasn't really played. He didn't play enough matches to get a medal, unfortunately. He got one because he trained and we had extras. But are we really ready to put him as the backup at this point and just throw him straight in as second string? I don't know. I would like that. But he's still a young boy who's making some interesting decisions with his hair. And do we think we can trust him with the ball? If we can't even trust him to take care of his own hair, I don't know about that. And Curtis Jones is clearly viewed as a midfielder now, so he's not really a wing backup. So I think this, funnily enough, this is kind of the place where we have the most work to do is in attack in these front three, because we seem to have a natural backup for Bobby now with Minamino. Origi is kind of Mane's backup in a weird way, but that doesn't work, and it doesn't work enough. It can be good, but I feel like we have the same discussion every now and then of like, all right, Origi did a lot for us, but he's not very good, is he? And I don't know if he's a great part of the team, and he seems well liked, and it's not looking to mess up the chemistry of the team, although the chemistry is reset now that Mo has found his new best friend in Tsimikas. So all is right with the world. But yeah, I feel like this is where we have the most work to do because the drop off is still so significant, and it could change as Minamino grows in comfort, but we'll see where his true level is in an elite team like this. But I don't know. Sometimes when we make subs for the wings, it just doesn't feel right, and everything changes, and it doesn't just look like we want it to. Will we evolve as in the style of play like we did this season to win it all? I feel like we'll have to, because teams have kind of figured they'll know how to play against us, and we'll have to grow. We can't just be the same team over and over again, because it just doesn't work like that. So maybe not sell, but still bring some people in, because it would be nice.
Yeah, that's a great point that a lot of these midfield quote unquote players step up in the wings more. But it's also a good point. It's sad that we didn't have a chance to record this episode before the very quick transfers of Dejan Lovren and Adam Lallana occurred, because we would have had more move these players, please comments to make. It's a shame. But all right, Zach, the forwards, round us out with any opinions you have here about this position group.
Yeah, really the only player I wanted to discuss in depth here is Divock. I've been a pretty big fan of his for a while, and I'll be the first to admit that he's definitely got some big flaws in his game. And Alex just mentioned how a lot of the time when Divock is being subbed in, it's kind of out of position and it doesn't always quite work. I mean, he's really he's like a center forward, really, and he works best when deployed through the middle, and that's not always what we're doing with him. But I also think that he's the sort of player that has played this very specific role in our team for several seasons now, and he's done a great job at it, and he's been really important in big moments, big games, as Will alluded to. And I think Divock is in a position now where if he is happy with his current role at the club, there's really no reason to move him on unless we've lined up a direct replacement. But if Divock has reached a point in his career where he would rather be leading the line at a club that's maybe just one tier below us, I think he's kind of earned that. And if that's what he wants, I would totally respect that decision, and I would hope that the club would too, based on the contributions he's made. With that being said, I hope he's happy with his role, and I would like to see him stay, because I think it's a tough sell to bring in a really talented forward at this current moment with our club, because it doesn't really matter how great you are, you're really going to have a hard time challenging any of our starters in the front three. You're going to come in knowing that you're going to have a role off the bench or in the squad rotation. And we've already got that with Divock, and he's pretty good in that role. So I would not advocate selling him this season or in this offseason unless that's really what he wanted, because he's ready to progress to a different phase of his career.
That's a great point as well, Zach, because I feel like that situation you just described is one of the reasons why it's taken Minamino a little bit of time to get adjusted, because it's like, okay, we know you're like this high energy type of forward that would totally fit well to what we want to do, but you're going to have to come in, back up, some of the best forwards and wingers in the world right now, and you're going to have to learn like the way that our whole scheme flows through them and try to replicate that. That's one of the reasons why they're like his high energy style of play. A lot of times when he came in, just looked super disjointed, because that's a tall ask. And I think that there are a lot of players we might try to recruit that would look at it and just go, I don't know if that's worth it, when I could go and play maybe more naturally at another club that will, play me more like that. So that's a great point. Gold star for Zach. There, I'm saying it.
Aw, thanks.
For me, at this point, Origi has become similar to an Adam Lallana situation, where it's like, if he sticks around, we'll use him until his contract's up. Good with me. Like, I don't want to actively sell him anymore. Last year, I remember distinctly saying, it's time. His value's high after the Champions League. We should sell him, get some money out of that whole deal. and then we didn't. And this past year, he's been present, you know? And I feel like at this point,
It's kind of his job, though.
yeah,
Like just to
Yeah.
be present.
exactly.
Score against Newcastle. That's it.
And that's it, you know? So yeah, why not just hang on to him until his contract is up, and you know, then he can go do whatever he wants to do. Like I feel like we've gotten our money's worth, you know, with Divock. Like we don't feel like we'd ever lose money if he left on a free, you know? So this is what Alex was saying, this is an area that needs some help. And this is where maybe a lot of those listed as midfielders type of young players might actually get their playing time more so. Like maybe, yeah, you'll see a guy like a Grujic stay in the midfield, but Wilson, Woodburn, Elliott, even Ojo, you know, Ojo's truthfully more of a winger than he is a true mid. And so all of those guys could see a lot of playing time here. But whew, there we go. Gentlemen, we've gotten through the 4 major groups. Now let's talk about each member of the coaching staff and whether we replace them. But no, we have made it through all of the groups. Not a huge amount of players that we look at and we're like, yeah, we need to get rid of them, and that's a great place to be in as a club. You know, a great place to be in is where you're not just saying, oh, we have to add depth, because everyone always needs to add depth. Players are always getting older. Players are always wanting to go to greener pastures, like to play, not like they're dying and we have to, you know, put them in out of their misery or something.
Oh,
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was clear. You know,
plot
not
twist.
yeah.
Even Milner.
Right. The ripe age of, what is he now? I mean, he's got to be like retirement age AARP James Milner by now. Did you guys see the take your father to work?
It was
Take
so
your son to
good.
work posts from Milner, Ravo, and Harvey. It's so good. So good. So yeah, it's a great place to be in as a club. The title defense coming in hot. I mean, we're just around the corner. We got to go ahead and start this thing back up. It's crazy. So I feel like we'll wrap up this episode, the Keep or Sell episode, now and start to prepare, gentlemen, with our actual preseason preview episodes coming up next. So, whew, here we are. Great place to be in. Alex, Zach, Will, if you have any closing thoughts on this episode, I want all 3 of you to say them simultaneously, starting now. Go.
Oh, this is going to be a train wreck. We need to start workshopping ideas for our next special segment. You know, we had best crests, and we had what was the other one we did?
Giggles.
Oh, for kits and giggles.
Yep.
We gotta figure out what the next one is. I mean, that's what all the Norwegians tune in for. So
Yeah.
It's true.
yeah.
It's very true. I mean, we'll have to come up with that segment for the next episode, along with talking about like our actual expectations and preseason stuff in the next episode. We'll have to talk about, you know, who we think will get relegated out of all the teams. You know, who out of the newly promoted teams we think may stay up, which is always, you know, one of those things that I look forward to doing, and then right after we've done it, I forgot that I ever said anything about it. You know.
Yeah, I was just thinking we need to go look at the episode that we did to preview and see
Right.
if what our relegation picks were.
Yeah. I remember that I predicted Brighton to go down, and they actually stayed up. But there was a span of time in there which I was like, man, I'm going to be right, and I'm going to be mad about it. But so
Who would have thought they would play some like kind of attractive football along the way?
I can't wait to see how they forget to play attractive football to start next season.
It's going to be terrible.
They've got Adam Lallana now. You think they're going to be
It's true.
ugly? Like, are you kidding me?
God, they're going to.
He's not going to play. He's going to get hurt like the 3rd game.
He's going
No,
to turn them to Champions League.
Yeah, his influence is going to be felt because that whole team's going to be Cruyff turning like
Ooh.
every chance they get. The whole team. It's going to be their entire strategy,
Oh,
and I'm
boy.
here for it. I'm here for it. All right, Alex, Zach, Will, thank you guys very much for jumping in on the Keep or Sell episode. As always, we'll now turn it over to the guy that will never sell, Andrew Ainsworth to sign us out. Andrew? Thanks, Andrew. Man, I've really started
I
honestly.
was busy ripping my jewel. Sorry.